We don't want to shut down the government, but if Democrats refuse to just pass this clean continuing resolution, that's exactly what's going to happen, and I think the Democrats are going to bear the responsibility for it.
As Vice President J.D. Vance putting the ball squarely in the Democrats' court as Congress faces a midnight deadline on Wednesday to fund the government or shut down. With the clock ticking, leaders from both parties, they're going to head to the White House for a meeting with President Trump later today, but they seem to be digging in their heels. Watch.
Meeting is a first step, but only a first step. We need a serious negotiation.
What the Democrats have done here is take the federal government as a hostage, and for that matter, by extension, the American people.
My colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle have behaved not as a separate and co-equal branch of government and a check and balance on an out-of-control executive branch.
There is nothing partisan about this continuing resolution. Nothing. We didn't add a single partisan priority or policy rider at all. We're operating completely in good faith to give more time.
Former Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy is here. You've been through many of these shutdown fights. I find them a little ridiculous, a little boring, and a little dumb, frankly, if I'm being honest. And I just thought, surely this is not going to happen again, but here we are. Who has the upper hand here?
Well, the Republicans do, because you got to give credit to Speaker Johnson and the Republicans of the House. They passed a continuing resolution, which to your listeners mean it just keeps government as it's moving, because September 30th is the end of the year for government. The appropriation bills won't be done for later. There's nothing that will change, but it takes 60 votes in the Senate. This all comes down to Schumer, and the only reasons he's doing this is because he can't lead his own base. Remember when we came to this so many months ago, he said he was going to fight it, then he folded, and he had a new book come out, and he couldn't even go on a book tour because he's afraid of AOC. And remember, AOC is a member of Congress, but she raises more money than any other member of Congress. She's from New York. He's afraid she'll run against him. And so all he's doing is holding the entire country hostage because he cannot stand up and do the right thing. If I was President Trump, I would only say this inside the meeting. I will negotiate with you after you keep the government open, because they are the only ones who are determining this. They are holding it hostage, like Thune says, and they can have a lot of people laid off because he's afraid politically.
You see, former Republican Speaker Kevin McCarthy shared a rather interesting point about Chuck Schumer's behavior during the government shutdown debate. According to him, Schumer is actually nervous about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. McCarthy suggests that Schumer worries AOC could challenge him for his seat in Congress. If you look back, Schumer used to be considered more of a moderate voice. But once AOC entered the picture, raising significant funds and building her popularity, the dynamics shifted. Now, she's a well-recognized figure in the Democratic Party, and that may be creating pressure on Schumer. So publicly, Schumer might be trying to appear as though he's standing firm for Democrats and keeping the progressive wing satisfied. But it's doubtful that he genuinely believes shutting down the government is the right path forward. Holding essential services hostage and risking harm to people who rely on government programs isn't the right thing to do. And while Schumer has plenty of experience, that alone doesn't excuse him from making better choices. At the end of the day, he hasn't shown much willingness to put the country's best interests first.
Join me in a little trip down memory lane, which I think you will probably remember. This is from 2018.
We do not want to shut down the government because you can't get your
The
way.
last time you shut it down, you got killed.
Let me say something, Mr. President.
Let me say this.
North Dakota
This
and
is the
India.
most unfortunate thing. We came in here in good faith, and we're entering into this kind of a discussion in the public view.
But it's not bad, Nancy.
No,
It's called transparency.
I know it's not transparency when we're not stipulating to a set of facts.
So you remember that. And the other thing that could happen is not only did the White House threaten to basically lay off a bunch of people if the government shuts down, because if they're not essential, then they're not essential. So I think that's a little leverage. But also, Kirsten Gillibrand, a Democrat from New York, is planning a Napa retreat in your home state of California. This is Political Playbook had this for the DSCC on October 13th and 14th. Why does that matter? Because they could be, the Senate Democrats, the Congressional Committee, could be at this fancy, wonderful wine retreat on a shutdown day, if that were to happen.
Exactly. They would have to cancel that. I mean, but this is all coming down to Schumer. Maybe he plans to open it up right before that so he can raise the money. This is purely a Schumer shutdown. Look, I've been on the other side of this. I remember in 2013, what happens when one party wins the White House for the second term, the party out of power, the base gets very upset. And you walk yourself into something that is not smart. It costs more money. You give the power to the executive branch. President Trump will be even stronger. Again, if I was President Trump, the only thing I would do in this situation is says, I will negotiate with you after you keep the government open, because nothing changes. It's at the end of the year when anything changes. This is simply Schumer. The Democrats are craving a new leader. When you look to Hakeem and Schumer, they are the weakest Democrats I've ever had in leadership. They don't know how to get out of this problem they created themselves in because they only look to themselves. They're not true leaders. And what you're watching is other Democrats rising up around them because they won't lead.
You see, over the past several years, Schumer really hasn't shown much leadership, and neither has his counterpart in the House. As some critics like to mockingly say, he often comes across as just a predictable, recycled version of the same old politics. It's like watching a sports team run the same play again and again. It gets boring, predictable, and frankly, out of touch. The Democrats often make loud threats and call out Republicans in public, but in reality, they're the ones blocking key programs by pushing the idea of a shutdown. If they were truly serious about governing, they would sit down with President Trump and negotiate while keeping the government open. But that's not what they're doing, and Trump has been clear. No negotiations will happen if the government is shut down. No, both parties are facing a major deadline. Democrats are essentially saying, we'll close the government if we don't get our way. That puts them in a tough position. Either they go through with a shutdown and face backlash from the broader public, or they back down and risk angering their progressive base. If they cave, it'll look like a win for Republicans and a messaging victory for the Trump administration. History suggests Democrats usually fold in these situations, and Schumer himself may give in again, but he could also try to drag things out because of pressure from AOC and the progressive wing, which would show weakness, not strength. At the end of the day, he seems more worried about protecting his own role in Congress than about what's best for the country. From a strategy perspective, Republicans don't need to back down at all. They can simply let Democrats fight amongst themselves. That alone gives Republicans an easy political win. They can present themselves as the ones trying to keep the government open, maintain critical programs for families, and resist far-left policies that many believe are harmful. That message is straightforward, relatable, and true, and people will respond to it. So, the best move for Republicans is to hold their ground. Chances are Schumer is bluffing, and when the deadline arrives, Democrats will most likely vote to keep the government open. They just don't want to look like they're giving in. In the end, we'll see who blinks first.
We don't want to shut down the government, Martha, but it's really up to the Democrats. I think the American people really should pay attention to the fact that Democrats are threatening to shut down the entire government because they want to give hundreds of billions of dollars of health care benefits to illegal aliens. I've never seen anything like it. It's such a stark contrast between Republicans who are trying to put the interests of the American people first and Democrats who I think would want to take money from the American people to give benefits to illegal aliens.
J.D. Vance is absolutely right on this. Democrats are putting the American people at risk with their threats of shutting down the government. Schumer should be taking responsibility and guiding his party toward a better solution, but it doesn't look like he's willing to do that either. He's uninterested, or he's simply fine with letting things fall apart. When you factor in the pressure he's facing from AOC and his determination to push back against Trump, Schumer seems stuck in a no-win situation and he's starting to look desperate. Meanwhile, Republicans have made it clear they're willing to negotiate, but only if the government stays open. Schumer, on the other hand, seems either bluffing or working to block that process altogether. And for a party that claims to care about ordinary Americans, Democrats are taking a huge gamble by risking critical funding for millions of people. At the end of the day, we'll just have to wait and see which direction they choose. But President Trump has already made his position clear. The government must remain open, no matter what list of demands the far left puts on the table. That's all for now, everyone. I'm True with True Signal. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you in the next one.